The cafeteria buzzed with a dozen different languages as students from across the galaxy gathered for their morning meal. Alex pushed his tray along the food dispenser, watching the machine create a breakfast that looked almost like eggs and bacon. Almost, but not quite. Nothing here tasted like home. He found his usual table where his study group was already assembled. Maya was reviewing her xenobiology notes while eating something that glowed faintly blue. David had his face buried in a historical text about ancient trade routes between star systems. Emma was sketching behavioral patterns she had observed in their alien classmates. At the next table over, their alien friends were having what sounded like an intense discussion. Kryn's crystalline body was flashing different colors, which meant excitement or worry. Yoth was making the low humming sounds that indicated deep thought in his aquatic species. Tess clicked her mandibles rapidly, while her compound eyes focused on multiple data tablets at once. Nix floated in his containment suit, electromagnetic pulses dancing across the surface. They look upset about something, Emma observed, closing her sketchpad. Alex glanced over. Probably worried about the break coming up. I heard Kryn say something yesterday about missing home. We all miss home, Maya muttered, stabbing at her glowing breakfast. But at least we get to go back. David looked up from his book. Actually, we could invite them to Earth, show them what our world is like. Right, Alex laughed. Like the Coalition would ever approve that. Earth is still on the restricted list. I didn't say officially, David replied with a grin. The idea hung in the air between them. For 6 months, they had been the odd ones out at Galactic University Station. Earth was the newest member of the Coalition, barely accepted and still viewed with suspicion by many species. Humans were considered unremarkable at best, primitive at worst. Their test scores were average. Their physical abilities fell somewhere in the middle range compared to other species. They had no special talents like Kryn's mathematical precision or Tess's multi-spectrum vision. They were just ordinary students from an ordinary world, trying to prove they belonged among the stars. But their alien classmates had never seen an ordinary world. Every other planet in the Coalition had been carefully terraformed or naturally suited for comfortable living. Perfect temperatures, stable weather, safe environments. Earth was different, though the humans had never really explained why. After breakfast, Alex approached the alien table. Hey, what are you all planning for the semester break? Kryn's crystal body shifted to a pale green color. Return to homeworlds, visit family crystals, standard break activities. Sounds lonely, Maya said, joining the conversation. Spending break apart after we have gotten so close. This is normal pattern. Yoth bubbled through his water breathing apparatus. Breaks are for family time, not study group time. But what if we stayed together? Emma suggested. What if you all came to Earth with us? The aliens exchanged glances. While Kryn flashed colors, Yoth made concerned bubbling sounds. Tess's eyes swiveled in multiple directions, and Nix's electromagnetic field fluctuated wildly. Earth is restricted planet, Tess clicked. Coalition members require special permits for cultural preservation visits. We're not talking about a Coalition visit, David said carefully. We're talking about friends visiting friends. But Earth is deathworld, Nix's translator crackled. Dangerous gravity, poisonous atmosphere, unstable climate systems. Alex almost laughed. Deathworld? Earth? It's really not that bad. I mean, yes, the gravity's a bit strong and the oxygen levels are higher than most worlds, but humans live there just fine. Humans are adapted to deathworld conditions, Yoth observed. Other species are not. We'll take care of you, Maya promised. Stay in safe areas. Use environmental suits if needed. It would be amazing to show you where we come from. The aliens discussed it among themselves in their native languages. Alex caught fragments, concerns about atmospheric composition, gravitational stress, radiation exposure, temperature variations, things that humans never really thought about because they had always lived with them. Finally, Kryn spoke for the group. We are curious about human homeworld. If proper safety precautions are taken, we would be interested in cultural exchange. Visit. Really? Emma beamed. Oh, this is going to be wonderful. We can show you everything. Cities, countryside, oceans, mountains. Mountains? Tess's antennae twitched nervously. High-altitude environments with low atmospheric pressure? Don't worry, Alex assured her. We'll start with easy stuff. Maybe visit my hometown first. It's pretty calm there. Over the next few days, they planned the trip carefully. The humans would arrange transport through a private shipping company that asked fewer questions than official coalition vessels. The aliens would bring environmental monitoring equipment and emergency supplies. Everyone would keep the trip quiet to avoid administrative complications. As the semester wound down, Alex noticed his alien friends becoming increasingly nervous about the journey. They asked endless questions about Earth's environment, weather, patterns, and safety protocols. They researched human physiology, trying to understand how a species could survive on such a harsh world. Your bone density is remarkable, Kryn observed during one of their study sessions, and your cardiovascular system appears designed for high-stress environments. Your muscle fiber composition suggests adaptation to variable gravitational conditions, Tess added, reviewing her biological scans. We're just normal humans, Maya laughed. Nothing special about us. But the aliens were discovering things about their human friends that the humans themselves didn't realize were unusual. Their ability to function normally in the university's varying artificial gravity zones. Their tolerance for the atmospheric mix changes between different sections of the station. Their quick adaptation to new foods, schedules, and environmental conditions. You adjust to changes more efficiently than most species, Yoth noted. This is not common trait in galactic community. Everyone adjusts to changes, David said, don't they? Not like humans do, Nix replied through his translator. Most species require extensive preparation for environmental modifications. Humans seem to adapt automatically. Emma made a note in her psychology journal. She had been documenting cultural differences between species, but was starting to notice patterns she hadn't expected. Their alien friends excelled in their specialized areas but struggled with unexpected changes. Humans seemed to be generalists by comparison. The day before their departure, Alex found himself excited and nervous. He would finally get to share his world with friends who had shared theirs through stories and cultural exchanges. He imagined showing them the mountains near his home, the forests where he had played as a child, the streams where he had learned to fish. What he didn't imagine was that his friends would see these ordinary places as alien landscapes more dangerous than anything they had encountered in their travels across the galaxy. What seemed like a simple trip home was about to become a revelation that would change everything they thought they knew about humans and the world that had created them. The transport ship shuddered as it entered Earth's atmosphere, and Alex heard Kryn make a sound like breaking glass. The crystalline being structure was already showing stress patterns from the increasing gravitational pull. Landing in 5 minutes, the pilot announced over the intercom. All passengers prepare for standard Earth gravity. Standard Earth gravity. Alex had never thought of it as anything special, but watching his alien friends struggle with the descent made him realize how different his homeworld really was. Yoth's water suit was working overtime to maintain proper pressure as the ship descended through the thick atmosphere. His gills fluttered nervously behind the transparent barrier. Atmospheric density increasing beyond safe parameters, he bubbled. You'll adjust, Maya said reassuringly, though she was starting to notice how hard her friends were working just to breathe and move normally. The ship touched down at Denver Spaceport with a solid thump that made Tess's compound eyes whir in distress. Through the viewports, they could see human workers moving around the landing pad, completely unburdened by the gravity that was making the aliens struggle. They move so easily, Nix observed, his electromagnetic field flickering as he watched. Ground crew members lifting cargo containers that his scans indicated weighed several 100 pounds each. It's just normal work, David said. But he was beginning to see his own species differently as he watched the dock workers through alien eyes. The group made their way slowly through the spaceport terminal. What should have been a simple walk became an ordeal for their alien friends. Kryn's crystalline legs cracked audibly with each step. Yoth needed help from a mobile support unit to move his water tank. Tess kept stopping to rest, her exoskeleton not designed for this gravitational stress. Only Nick seemed relatively unaffected, floating in his containment suit. But it wasn't just the gravity that overwhelmed them. The air itself seemed to attack their senses. Oxygen concentration at dangerous levels. Tess clicked, checking her atmospheric readings. 21% is highly reactive. Most worlds maintain 12% maximum. And the radiation? Yoth added fearfully. This star emits across entire electromagnetic spectrum without atmospheric filtering. Alex looked up at the sun shining through the terminal's skylights. He had played under that same sun every day of his childhood, never thinking of it as dangerous. Radiation. It's just sunlight, he said weakly. Just sunlight? Kryn's colors flashed alarm red. Your species tolerates direct exposure to unfiltered stellar radiation? They rented a ground vehicle for the trip to Alex's hometown in the mountains. What Alex had described as a short scenic drive became a nightmare of environmental extremes. For his alien friends, the temperature dropped 15 degrees as they gained altitude. Tess went into thermal shock and had to be wrapped in emergency heating blankets. The atmospheric pressure decreased enough to trigger emergency protocols in Yoth's life support system. Kryn's crystal structure developed hairline fractures from the rapid environmental changes. How much further? Nix asked, his translator crackling with static from the altitude. About an hour, Alex replied, then noticed the look of panic in his friend's various expressions. We can turn back if you want. No, Yoth said firmly, though his gills were working hard. We came to see human world. We will see human world. They drove through landscapes that Alex had always considered beautiful and peaceful. Rolling hills covered with trees, streams running clear over rocky beds, meadows where cattle grazed peacefully. But his alien friends saw something entirely different. Those organisms, Tess pointed at a herd of deer grazing near the roadside. They appear to be large predators. Those are deer, Emma explained. They eat grass. They're completely harmless. Harmless? Kryn flashed confused colors. They are twice the mass of most sentient species and equipped with bony projections for combat. Alex realized his friends were seeing Earth through a lens of worlds where everything was safe and controlled. A deer looked like a monster to beings who came from places where the largest native life forms were barely the size of house cats. They stopped at a roadside cafe for lunch, and the culture shock continued. Maya ordered what she considered a light meal, a sandwich, soup, and salad. To the aliens, it looked like enough food for a week. Human caloric requirements are extensive, Nix observed, watching Maya eat normally while his friends shared a single nutritional supplement packet between all four of them. The cafe owner, a friendly woman in her 60s, came over to chat with the interesting visitors. She moved with an energy and strength that made the aliens exchange worried glances. You folks passing through? She asked cheerfully, easily carrying a tray loaded with food that would have required mechanical assistance on most worlds. Just showing our friends around, Alex replied. Well, you picked a beautiful day for it, she said, gesturing toward the windows where afternoon sunlight streamed in. Beautiful to humans. To the aliens, it looked like a radiation bombardment. After lunch, they continued to Alex's hometown, a small mountain community that he had always thought of as quiet and peaceful. His friends saw it as an extreme environment survival outpost. Children played in the town park, running and jumping with casual ease despite the high altitude and thin air. Elderly residents worked in their gardens, handling soil that the alien scanners identified as full of heavy metals and organic toxins that would be lethal to most galactic species. How do they survive? Yoth asked in wonder, watching a group of teenagers playing what looked like a violent combat sport, but was actually just a pickup game of football. They're just kids having fun, David said. But even he was starting to see the game differently. The impacts that seemed normal to him would hospitalize most alien species. They checked into a local inn, and Alex's mother arrived to meet their guests. She was a typical human grandmother, kind, energetic, insisting on bringing homemade cookies and asking a dozen questions about their journey. The aliens were fascinated and terrified by her. She moved with unconscious strength, lifting luggage that strained their mechanical assistance devices. She talked cheerfully about her daily activities, hiking, gardening, volunteer work at the local clinic, things that would be extreme sports on most worlds. "Your parental unit is remarkably resilient," Kryn observed after she left. "She's just a normal grandmother," Alex protested. "Nothing about humans is normal," Tess replied, her compound eyes whirring as she processed everything she had seen. "Your species has adapted to conditions that would eliminate most life forms, yet you treat these conditions as comfortable living environments." That evening, they sat on the inn's porch watching the sunset over the mountains. To Alex, it was a peaceful end to a good day. To his friends, it was a daily reminder of the hostile star that bombarded their temporary shelter with deadly radiation. "Tomorrow, we explore more of your hometown," Yoth said bravely, though his life support systems were already working at maximum capacity just to keep him alive in what humans considered a mild mountain climate. "Are you sure?" Emma asked, noticing how exhausted they all looked. "We could take things easier." "We are here to learn," Nix replied, "though we begin to understand that learning about humans requires understanding how impossible things become possible." As the aliens settled in for the night, each requiring extensive life support monitoring and environmental controls, Alex lay in his bed thinking about home for the first time in his life. He had always assumed Earth was ordinary, even boring compared to the exotic worlds his classmates came from. But seeing his world through alien eyes, he was beginning to realize that perhaps Earth wasn't ordinary at all. Perhaps the most extraordinary thing about it wasn't the dangerous conditions, but the fact that an entire species had learned not just to survive them, but to call them home. Emma woke up to the sound of sirens and immediately thought something terrible had happened. She rushed to the window of the inn and saw fire trucks and ambulances racing through the small town. Her alien friends were already awake, their various life support systems beeping an alarm. "Emergency situation." Kryn's crystal body flashed urgent red. "Should we evacuate to orbit?" "Let me check what's happening," Alex said, pulling on his clothes and heading downstairs. He returned a few minutes later with news that made the humans smile, but the aliens even more worried. "Good news," he announced. "It's just a training exercise. The local volunteer fire department is practicing rescue operations up on Eagle Ridge." "Training exercise?" Tess clicked nervously. "They simulate emergency situations for recreational purposes?" "Not recreational," Maya corrected. "They're volunteers, regular people with regular jobs who also train to save lives in emergencies." David opened his laptop and showed them footage of the exercise from the local news stream. Ordinary humans, a grocery store clerk, a teacher, an insurance agent, were rappelling down cliff faces and carrying injured people through terrain that looked like an active war zone. "Your species voluntarily exposes itself to life-threatening situations as preparation for other life-threatening situations." Yoth bubbled in amazement. "That's just how communities work," Emma explained, though she was starting to realize how strange it must sound to beings from worlds where emergencies were virtually unknown. After breakfast, Alex had planned a simple hiking trip to show his friends the local scenery. What he considered an easy nature walk turned into a demonstration of human capabilities that left the aliens speechless. The trail started at 7,000 feet elevation and climbed another 1,000 feet through rocky terrain. For the humans, it was a pleasant morning hike. For their alien friends, it was like ascending a mountain on an alien world. Within the first 100 yards, Kryn's crystal structure was showing stress fractures from the uneven terrain. Tess had to stop every few minutes to rest her exoskeleton. Yoth's water tank was consuming power at 3 times normal rate just to maintain pressure at the altitude. Even Nix, usually the most adaptable, was struggling with electromagnetic interference from the mineral deposits in the rocks. "Maybe we should turn back," Maya suggested, seeing how much difficulty they were having. "No," Yoth insisted. "We observe human activity in natural environment. This is important learning experience." They continued slowly up the trail, the humans, unconsciously adjusting their pace to help their struggling friends. But even at the slower speed, the aliens were amazed by what they witnessed. Alex's little sister Anna had joined them for the hike. She was 12 years old and treated the challenging terrain like a playground. She hopped from rock to rock, climbed over fallen trees, and chatted constantly while barely breathing hard at an altitude that was pushing the aliens' life support systems to their limits. Small human demonstrates remarkable adaptation, Kryn observed, his colors shifting to scientific interest despite his physical distress. Cardiovascular efficiency at this elevation suggests genetic optimization for low oxygen environments. She's just a kid who grew up in the mountains, Alex said, but he was watching his sister with new eyes. Anna was doing things that would require specialized training for most species, and she was doing them naturally. They reached a small lake about halfway up the trail, and David suggested they stop for lunch. The humans unpacked sandwiches and water bottles while the aliens gratefully activated their rest and recovery protocols. Water source appears contaminated, Tess reported, scanning the crystal-clear lake with her instruments. High mineral content, organic particulates, potential bacterial contamination. It's perfectly clean, Maya laughed. People drink from mountain streams all the time. To prove her point, she cupped her hands in the lake and took a drink. The aliens watched in horror as she consumed water that their scanners indicated would cause severe illness in most galactic species. Human digestive systems must include extensive toxin filtering capabilities, Nix observed. Or maybe we just don't think of everything as toxic, Emma replied, though she was beginning to understand that her friends weren't being overly cautious. They were being realistic about what their bodies could handle. The afternoon brought unexpected weather, which turned the educational hike into something resembling a survival exercise. Storm clouds rolled in with typical mountain speed, and within minutes they were caught in a downpour with dropping temperatures and rising wind. For the humans, it was an inconvenience. They pulled on rain jackets, adjusted their packs, and continued, hiking with minor complaints about getting wet. For the aliens, it was a life-threatening emergency. Kryn's crystal structure began resonating dangerously in the electromagnetic field of the storm. Tess's compound eyes couldn't function properly in the reduced visibility and chaotic light patterns. Yoth's life support system started overheating as it tried to maintain stable conditions in the rapidly changing environment. Nix's containment field fluctuated wildly with each lightning strike. We need to get to shelter, Alex decided, leading the group toward a small cave he remembered from childhood hikes. The cave provided protection from the worst of the storm, but it was still a harsh environment by galactic standards. Rough stone, walls, uneven floor, water dripping from the ceiling, and the sound of thunder echoing off the walls. This is acceptable emergency shelter? Yoth asked, looking around the primitive space. It's actually pretty cozy, Anna said cheerfully, pulling snacks from her backpack and offering them to everyone. While they waited out the storm, the humans did things that seemed impossible to their alien friends. Alex started a fire using just materials he found in the cave. Maya identified edible plants growing near the entrance and explained which ones were safe to eat. David pulled out a simple compass and showed how he could navigate using it even in the storm. Emma kept everyone's spirits up with stories and jokes, maintaining group morale in what the aliens considered a genuinely dangerous situation. Your species treats survival skills as common knowledge, Kryn observed, his colors shifting to deep blue, the shade that indicated his mind was working hard to process new information. Doesn't everyone learn basic outdoor skills? David asked. Most species require technological assistance for environmental challenges, Tess replied. Survival depends on equipment and support systems, not individual knowledge. When the storm passed, they emerged from the cave to find the landscape transformed. What had been a dusty trail was now muddy and slippery. Creek beds that had been dry were now rushing with runoff. The whole environment had changed dramatically in just a few hours. The humans adapted immediately. They adjusted their footing for the muddy conditions, found new paths around the swollen streams, and actually seemed to enjoy the changed environment. Anna pointed out how much prettier everything looked after the rain, and Maya noted how the storm had brought out new scents from the forest. The aliens struggled with every aspect of the changed conditions. Their equipment had to recalibrate for new atmospheric readings. Their mobility systems couldn't handle the altered terrain. Their environmental suits needed constant adjustment as conditions kept shifting. How do you manage such rapid adaptation? Nix asked as they carefully made their way down the now treacherous trail. We just do what needs doing, Emma replied simply. But the aliens were beginning to understand that just doing what needs doing represented a kind of capability they had never encountered before. Most species in the galaxy had evolved on stable worlds where conditions rarely changed. When they faced challenges, they used technology and careful planning to overcome them. Humans seemed to have evolved on a world where change was constant and technology wasn't always available. They had developed something the aliens were starting to recognize as unprecedented in galactic civilization: the ability to adapt in real time to whatever conditions they encountered. By the time they returned to town that evening, muddy, tired, and happy, the alien students had experienced more environmental variation in one day than most species encountered in years of space travel, and they had watched their human friends navigate it all with the casual competence of people who had been doing such things their entire lives. Tomorrow, Alex announced as they cleaned up back at the inn, we thought we might go swimming in the lake. The aliens looked at each other with expressions that managed to convey both terror and fascination. Swimming in natural water, at high altitude, in changeable weather conditions. They were beginning to realize that humans didn't just live on a dangerous world. They had turned danger itself into recreation. Professor Geth had never set foot on a planet's surface before. As the senior xenobiologist at Galactic University Station, he had always worked in carefully controlled environments where atmospheric conditions, gravity, and radiation levels were maintained at safe, comfortable standards. Now he stood in the Denver spaceport, his breathing apparatus working overtime in Earth's aggressive, oxygen-rich atmosphere, watching human children run through what his instruments measured as dangerously high levels of solar radiation. The reports were accurate then, he murmured to his research team. This world is genuinely hostile to most forms of life. The emergency recall of the 4 human students and their alien friends had created quite a stir at the university. What had started as a disciplinary action for unauthorized planetary visitation had quickly transformed into the largest xenological research expedition in Coalition history when the alien students filed their preliminary reports. According to Kryn, Yoth, Tess, and Nix, humans were not the unremarkable species they appeared to be. Their initial observations suggested capabilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about biological adaptation and survival. Now 12 professors, researchers, and officials from 6 different worlds had come to Earth to conduct a formal assessment. What they found in their first few hours made them question everything they thought they knew about human beings. The university delegation was met by Alex, Maya, David, and Emma, along with their alien friends, who now served as guides and interpreters. The culture shock was immediate and overwhelming. Dr. Voss, a Tyrellian biologist, nearly fainted when she witnessed dock workers at the spaceport. Those beings are lifting approximately 3 times their body weight, she gasped through her environmental suit's translator, without mechanical assistance repeatedly, while maintaining casual conversation. That's just normal cargo handling, Maya explained, though she was beginning to see the mundane activities of her world through the perspective of beings for whom physical labor required extensive technological support. Professor Chen, ironically, not related to any humans despite the similar name, was documenting everything with growing amazement. As a specialist in planetary habitability, he had classified Earth as a Class 9 deathworld, barely habitable and requiring extensive life support for most species. Watching humans walk around unprotected in conditions that required his full-on environmental suit was rewriting his understanding of biological adaptation. Their skin directly interfaces with unfiltered stellar radiation, he noted into his recorder. They appear to have evolved protective mechanisms that allow limited exposure to wavelengths that would cause cellular damage in most species. The delegation's first official observation session took place at a local high school, where they witnessed what humans called physical education and what the aliens could only describe as combat training. Students ran distances that would qualify as endurance racing on most worlds. They jumped heights that exceeded the natural capabilities of many species. They engaged in contact sports that involved collisions generating forces that would require medical attention for most galactic citizens. "Are these individuals specially selected for warrior training?" asked Commander Raxon, a military observer from the hegemony worlds. "No," Emma replied, pointing to the mixed group of students. "That's just regular gym class. Everyone participates." "Everyone?" Dr. Voss repeated weakly. "Your entire population undergoes combat conditioning as part of standard education." "It's not combat conditioning," David laughed. "It's just staying in shape." But the delegation was seeing something unprecedented. These weren't elite athletes or specially trained soldiers. These were ordinary human adolescents performing feats that would require extensive genetic modification or technological enhancement for most species to attempt. The real revelation came when they visited the school's medical facility. What humans considered basic first aid looked like advanced trauma surgery to the alien observers. The school nurse, a cheerful woman named Mrs. Rodriguez, demonstrated standard procedures for treating common injuries, cleaning and bandaging cuts that would be considered severe wounds on most worlds, treating sprains and bruises that represented significant tissue damage by galactic standards, administering medications that would be considered dangerous pharmaceuticals on many planets. Human medical protocols assume remarkable healing capabilities, Professor Geth observed. Your species appears to recover from tissue damage that would cause permanent disability in most populations. Kids heal fast, Mrs. Rodriguez said with a shrug, not understanding that she was describing biological capabilities that defied galactic norms. The delegation then visited a local construction site where they witnessed industrial work that challenged their understanding of biological limitations. Human workers operated in environmental conditions, high noise levels, atmospheric contaminants, physical demands that would require specialized equipment and extensive safety protocols for most species. They're using their own bodies as primary tools, noted Dr. Kess, an industrial safety specialist. Direct physical manipulation of materials and equipment without protective barriers. Alex watched a crew of construction workers pour concrete while his alien professors took extensive readings and made worried notes. "Is there something wrong?" he asked. "Wrong?" Professor Geth adjusted his breathing apparatus. "Your species appears to have evolved internal safety systems that most civilizations require technology to provide. Your workers are operating in conditions that would necessitate hazmat protocols on member worlds." The afternoon brought the most startling demonstration yet. The delegation visited a search and rescue training facility where volunteer emergency responders were practicing disaster response scenarios. What the humans described as community service training looked to the aliens like advanced military special operations. Volunteers, teachers, shopkeepers, retirees were rappelling from aircraft, navigating through simulated building collapses and carrying injured people through obstacle courses that resembled war zones. "These are not professional emergency responders?" Commander Raxon asked, his tactical analysis systems overloading as he tried to process what he was witnessing. "Most of them have regular jobs," Maya explained. "They volunteer for search and rescue in their spare time." Spare time? Dr. Voss was taking readings that showed stress levels and physical demands that would require hospitalization for most species. They voluntarily subject themselves to extreme danger as recreational activity. "It's about helping people," Emma said, though she was starting to understand how bizarre it must look to beings from worlds where such extreme conditions simply didn't exist. The final demonstration came unexpectedly when a piece of alien research equipment malfunctioned. The device, a sophisticated atmospheric analyzer worth more than most planetary budgets, suffered a cascade failure that left the delegation stranded until repairs could be made. While the alien technicians prepared to call for emergency evacuation and equipment replacement, Tom, a local mechanic from Alex's hometown who had come to help with transportation, asked to look at the device. "I've never seen anything like this," he admitted, examining the complex alien technology. "But I might be able to jury-rig something to get it working temporarily." The delegation watched in fascination as Tom used spare parts, improvised tools, and what he called common-sense engineering to create a repair solution that none of their computer models had suggested. Within 2 hours, he had the million-credit device functioning well enough to complete their observations. How did he develop the technical knowledge for such complex repair work? Professor Chen asked. He fixes farm equipment mostly, David replied. Tractors, irrigation systems, that sort of thing. The alien stared at Tom as he packed up his improvised tools, unable to comprehend how a human who worked on primitive agricultural machinery could solve engineering problems that had stumped their advanced technological analysis systems. Professor Geth gathered his research team that evening to compare notes. What they had observed challenged fundamental assumptions about biological adaptation, technological dependence, and the relationship between intelligence and survival capability. Preliminary conclusion, he dictated to his recorder. Human beings represent a form of evolutionary optimization previously unknown in galactic civilization. Rather than specializing in particular environmental niches or developing technological dependencies, they appear to have evolved general adaptability as their primary survival strategy. Dr. Voss added her biological observations. Physical capabilities exceed baseline projections for their size and metabolic requirements. Recovery rates from tissue damage are unprecedented. Environmental tolerance ranges are beyond established parameters for known species. Commander Raxon provided the military assessment. Individual humans demonstrate tactical flexibility and improvisation capabilities that typically require extensive training and technological support. Their civilian population possesses skills that would qualify as specialized military training in most civilizations. As the delegation prepared their reports for transmission to the Galactic Coalition, they faced the remarkable conclusion that Earth's deathworld environment had not produced a species that barely survived. It had produced a species uniquely equipped to thrive in conditions that would challenge any other known civilization. The humans, for their part, were beginning to understand that what they had always considered ordinary was actually extraordinary. They had grown up on a world that demanded adaptation, resilience, and resourcefulness as basic survival skills. What they saw as normal daily life represented capabilities that most of the galaxy found impressive and slightly terrifying. So what happens now? Alex asked Professor Geth as the delegation prepared to return to the university. Now, the professor replied, we rewrite our understanding of what's possible. The transport ship carrying the research delegation back to Galactic University Station was unusually quiet. Normally, academic expeditions resulted in excited discussions, immediate paper drafts, and competitive theorizing about new discoveries. This time, the alien professors sat in contemplative silence, processing observations that defied everything they thought they understood about biological evolution and planetary habitability. Alex, Maya, David, and Emma occupied the human section of the transport, designed with Earth-normal atmospheric conditions and gravity. Their alien friends visited when possible, though extended exposure to human environmental requirements was still physically demanding for them. I have been reconsidering mathematical principles, Kryn announced during one visit, his crystalline structure flickering with new color patterns. Human problem-solving demonstrates variables I had not previously calculated. When Tom repaired our atmospheric analyzer, he used what you call intuition. This is not mathematical process, yet it produced mathematically sound solution. Sometimes you just have to try things and see what works, Alex replied, though he was beginning to understand that what seemed obvious to humans was revolutionary to beings who relied on precise calculations and predictable outcomes. Yoth floated in his portable water tank, contemplating what he had witnessed. My species achieves wisdom through long periods of peaceful meditation in stable environments. Human wisdom appears to emerge from responding to constant change and challenge. This suggests alternative pathways to understanding that our philosophy, never considered. We don't really think of it as philosophy, Emma said. It's just dealing with whatever comes up. But the aliens were beginning to recognize that dealing with whatever comes up represented a form of practical wisdom that their more specialized approaches to knowledge had never developed. The return to Galactic University Station created an immediate sensation. Professor Geth's preliminary reports had been transmitted ahead, and word of the expedition's findings had spread throughout the academic community like wildfire. Students and faculty from dozens of worlds gathered at the docking bay to see the returning expedition. What they found challenged everything they had assumed about the 4 human exchange students who had quietly attended classes among them for months. Alex noticed the change immediately. Instead of the polite indifference he had grown accustomed to, he saw genuine curiosity and something that looked almost like respect in the eyes of his classmates. Species that had barely acknowledged human existence were now approaching with careful questions about Earth and human capabilities. Is it true that your species voluntarily exposes itself to stellar radiation for recreational purposes? Asked a Zenthari student whose people lived entirely in underground cities to avoid their planet's mild sun. You mean sunbathing? Maya replied, realizing that what she considered a normal summer activity was viewed as an extreme sport by most galactic standards. The transformation in academic attention was immediate and overwhelming. Professors who had previously treated humans as minor curiosities now wanted to study everything about human physiology, psychology, and cultural development. Research proposals flooded in from across the coalition, all seeking to understand how a single species could demonstrate such unprecedented adaptability. Dr. Voss published her biological findings first, and they sent shockwaves through the xenobiology community. Human muscle fiber composition, bone density, cardiovascular efficiency, and neural processing capabilities all fell within normal ranges when measured individually, but the combination created something that no other known species had achieved. Humans appear to represent evolutionary optimization for adaptability rather than specialization, her paper concluded. Instead of developing superior capabilities in specific areas, they have developed superior flexibility across all areas. The implications were staggering. Most species in the galaxy had evolved on worlds with stable, predictable conditions. They had developed remarkable abilities in their specialized areas, but required technological assistance when faced with environmental changes or unexpected challenges. Humans had evolved on a world where change was constant and survival depended on the ability to adapt quickly to new conditions. They weren't stronger than species that had evolved for strength, or smarter than species that had evolved for intelligence, or tougher than species that had evolved for durability. But they were more adaptable than any species the galaxy had ever encountered. Commander Raxon's military assessment had equally dramatic implications. The Coalition's understanding of security and defense was based on technological superiority and specialized training. Human capabilities suggested that adaptability and resourcefulness might be more valuable than advanced equipment and extensive preparation. Individual humans demonstrate tactical flexibility that our best-trained operatives require years of education to achieve, his report stated. Their civilian population possesses improvisation skills that exceed our military standards. Within weeks, the academic implications became practical realities. The Coalition Council formally reclassified Earth from a restricted cultural preservation world to a specialized training environment. Applications poured in from across the galaxy for exchange programs that would allow students to experience Earth's challenging conditions firsthand. But it wasn't just academic interest. Practical applications emerged immediately. Mining operations on hostile worlds requested human supervisors who could adapt to changing conditions without requiring constant technological support. Exploration missions sought human crew members who could improvise solutions when equipment failed in unknown environments. Emergency response organizations wanted to study human rescue and recovery techniques. The 4 human students found themselves transformed from insignificant exchange participants to the most sought-after individuals on the station. Everyone wanted to understand how humans thought, how they approached problems, how they maintained morale under stress. It's overwhelming, David admitted during one of their regular study sessions. Last semester, nobody wanted to work with us because we were too ordinary. Now everyone wants to work with us because we're too extraordinary. Perhaps the truth is that ordinary and extraordinary are not opposites, Nick suggested, his electromagnetic field pulsing thoughtfully. Perhaps they are the same thing, seen from different perspectives. The alien students who had visited Earth became celebrities in their own right, sought out for their first-hand observations of human capabilities. They found themselves serving as cultural interpreters, helping their fellow students understand the difference between human normal and galactic normal. Tess became particularly popular among engineering students after describing how Tom the mechanic had repaired their sophisticated atmospheric analyzer. Human engineering does not follow standard protocols, she explained to fascinated audiences. They observe, hypothesize, and experiment in real time. They treat unknown problems as puzzles to be solved rather than obstacles requiring specialized knowledge. Yoth's philosophical discussions about human wisdom drew audiences from across the academic spectrum. Human knowledge is not based on accumulation of facts, he explained. It is based on development of judgment. They learn to make correct decisions with insufficient information. Crin's mathematical analyses of human problem-solving patterns attracted attention from computational scientists throughout the coalition. Human thinking includes variables that our computers do not calculate, he reported. Intuition, creativity, and improvisation produce solutions that pure logic cannot reach. The most significant change came in how the coalition viewed Earth itself. What had been considered a dangerous death world requiring protection was now recognized as a unique training environment that produced capabilities found nowhere else in the galaxy. Plans were developed for controlled exposure programs where students from other worlds could experience Earth's challenges under careful supervision. Research facilities were proposed to study human adaptation techniques. Exchange programs expanded to bring humans to other worlds while bringing aliens to Earth. But the most profound change was in how humans saw themselves. For the first time, they understood that what they had always considered normal was actually remarkable. Their ability to adapt, to improvise, to persist in the face of constantly changing conditions was not a sign of being unremarkable. It was a sign of being uniquely prepared for whatever challenges the universe might present. We spent so much time trying to prove we belonged among the stars, Emma reflected as they watched another group of alien students preparing for their first supervised Earth expedition. We never realized that the stars had been waiting for someone who could handle whatever they found out there. The story of the human students who took their alien friends on a trip home had become something more than an academic anecdote. It had become the beginning of a new understanding of what made civilization strong and what prepared species for the unknown challenges of an infinite universe. As applications for Earth exchange programs reached unprecedented levels, and humans found themselves recruited for positions throughout the coalition, Alex realized that their journey had come full circle. They had started as unremarkable students trying to prove they deserved a place in galactic civilization. They had discovered that they weren't unremarkable at all. They were exactly what galactic civilization needed to face an uncertain future. The death world that had forged humanity's adaptability was no longer seen as a hostile environment to be avoided, but as a crucible that had produced something the galaxy had never seen before, a species ready for anything. And in a universe full of unknowns, being ready for anything was the most valuable capability of all.